Well, howdy there, Screen Freaks. A year after The Ghost of the Most blew our imaginations wide open in Tim Burton's finest achievement, another seemingly kid-friendly woolly booger tried to scare its way into our hearts in a low-budget fantasy called Little Monsters. For those late to the rodeo, this kiddie-safe film is about Fred Savage playing a 6th grader named Brian who makes best friends with a boogie he catches under his bed. This demonic-looking punk prankster is Maurice, a man-sized monster who's a fun whirlwind of spastic energy wonderfully portrayed by none other than Howie Mandel when he was between his claims to fame as the voice of Gizmo and the creator of Bobby's World. Sampling the meat of this late 80s nostalgia, Maurice shows Brian under every bed as a gateway to a whole other dimension full of boogies responsible for getting kids in trouble with their families to help build their character and keep their lives from being boring. Brian thinks it's all fun and games because, well, it literally is, but soon finds out the longer he hangs out in Maurice's dimension, the more he's at risk for becoming a cruel dick, not to mention a monster if he's ever there past sunrise. For fear of growing horns in all the wrong places, Brian breaks his friendship with Maurice, but learns the monster underworld is like the mafia when Maurice's chief honchos won't let Brian out until they say he's out. Nabbing Savage's real-life Boy Meets World brother, the monsters force Brian to return to their world to rescue him. Also, they can convert him into being a monster like them and keep their secrets safe or add to their numbers. It's kind of a weak point in the story. But with the help of other youngins and Maurice, Brian goes after his brother armed to the teeth with some heavy-duty flashlights which reduce monsters to piles of dirty laundry. So then they blow through the place, defeating all the bad guys and saving the little brother, and they hightail it out of there, giving their heartfelt goodbyes and see you laters. A decent movie with a lot of potential behind it for being a fun cartoon or toy line, but believe it or not, no such thing ever happened. No siree, if any fan of this flick ever wanted to follow the continuing adventures of this scare tag duo, there was only one stop to make. A few short months after the film's release, the long-defunct Now Comics snatched up the rights to publish a 6-issue miniseries of Little Monsters, and thank Craven, none of it was wasted on a lame-ass movie adaptation. Well, at least after the first 10 pages of issue 1, which recaps the last act to help catch newbies up in what happened in the movie, which you'd think they'd seen, or why else did they pick this comic up in the first place? I mean, it definitely wasn't for the lazy-ass photo covers. Why the hell is a villain's henchman the cover of issue 1? Shouldn't it be this one used for issue 5? Anywho, the comic picks up months after the events of the movie are released far enough in the future for Brian's parents to get divorced, probably because they blamed each other for losing their youngins across the country, and split the kids between the two of them with mom winning the problem child. Brian hasn't seen Maurice since their heartstring tugging goodbye in the movie and ventures back into the underworld to investigate. He finds out he and Maurice didn't so much defeat the bad guy boy as much as piss him off, and now he's taking it out on all the monsters. No more fun and games or freedom, and Maurice is trapped in the color pile under a light. Of course, Brian frees his partner in pranks, and we spend the rest of the series introducing a new cast of characters while Brian and Maurice fight boys rule over the underworld, while having smaller adventures on the side like outsmarting shrinks and stopping royal kidnappings. As a whole, I feel this was an okay comic series at best. I mean, my biggest problem with a comic spun off a movie is it will sometimes rehash the same fucking material from the film over and over, like how the Army of Darkness comics constantly recycle Sam Raimi's 20 to 30-year-old jokes and one-liners like a mongoloid living on a diet of his own shit. But we don't have that problem here. The Little Monsters comic keeps familiar things we like from the movie, but does what a comic should do and expand the film's universe and its characters. While that's gravy, it still manages to miss the mark. So insights into characters is a great thing and should be in the sweets of this review, but unfortunately it falls into the sours because we focus on all the wrong characters. You would think the stars would be the sole focus for exploring anyone's character. Brian is just a pipsqueak who just learned to wipe his own ass not too long ago, so not much to explore there, but come on, Maurice! A monster with a rich backstory just itching to be tapped into? Who was he before? Does he have an ex-girlfriend wanting his head? Anyone he regrets scaring? Well, how about Boy, the villain of the movie? Same thing. How did he become the leader? Is this a disguise or who he used to be? Is he really evil or just misguided? I mean, there's no limit to where they could have gone with all this, but we keep all these main players pretty flat and cartoony, spending most of the series digging up Snick's backstory. Yep. Boy's right claw man, Captain Underbite here, was turned into a monster against his will in the 70s when a European crime boss wanted to exploit the seekers of the monster's underworld for pulling off high-stake heist. The crime boss somehow kept Snick under his thumb all this time, despite the fact Snick's in an alternate dimension and could just kill the guy in his sleep, and things go south when Snick finally tells the guy off and fends off a revenge plot the rest of the series. Of course, this doesn't make a lick of sense because Snick's in fear for his life against this guy trying to kill him, but Maurice says in issue 2, monsters don't die. Now don't think I'm hating on this. This is written as a great backstory, making Snick the most dynamic and developed character during the run of the series, but we want to know more about the main characters before we get into the weeds with these co-stars, you know? My only other gripe about the writing is the way some scenes and cliffhangers are handled. We end issue 3 with Brian getting his foot stuck while escaping the underworld as the sun rises, and poof, he's got a monster foot! This dramatic moment is then dismissed almost the whole next issue, with a quick little thought bubble slid in to excuse the gag of a cliffhanger, with an explanation that it simply faded away. I can't put my finger on it, but something happened in the writing process that had the whole foot thing axed, and I thought it was clever. Issue 4 also had a weird moment with the opening with Brian randomly beating the shit out of a classmate for no reason, and then blaming him for starting it. This would have made sense if the monster foot triggered some violent monster instinct to harm others or something, but nope, he just lies to his teachers about not starting it and blames his behavior on personal problems. Serves that little sucker-bashing psycho right to be put in the rubber room. I also wasn't the biggest fan of the artwork. It's okay and reads fine enough, keeping things light and cartoony for the readers, but it did get distracting at times. Like this clan of hungry critters called warthogs who are immune to light. Why these little guys who called warthogs have no fucking clue? They don't look anything like pigs. Was this a hiccup between the writer and the artist? Maybe the artist had as hard of a time drawing hogs as he did youngins. I mean, they definitely had their moments where being a teen or an adult was a toss-up, almost as many times it looked like they were tripping balls. But for every sour there's a sweet, and it was the addition of new monsters and some nifty story ideas. Helping Brian and Maurice along the way is a goober of a booger named Bubs, a unicorn gal named Peanut, and boy enlisted services of new villains like a brute named Crash, the sci-fighting zombies, and a new pet named Splugo. Then we explore more corners of the monster's underworld as Brian and Maurice run all over the place, finding gateways to different time periods that lead to adventures in the 60s and Middle Ages, and allows Brian to snag some high-tech light gear from the future for defeating monsters. One of the best ideas in the series was Brian and Maurice pranking Buckingham Palace on a tour of London, a tour that unfortunately read nothing less than forced with these educational splash pages of each youngin's experience of London. To wrap this review up, I think these comics were a good effort and the writer definitely had their heart in the right place, but we really needed to explore more of who the main characters are while keeping them the center of the stories, trying to keep to the rules created for this world, and for fuck's sake, learn to draw a youngin'. Or hell, that might be too hard on what's probably an acceptable funny bucket because I'm criticizing a comic meant for middle schoolers for not being thought-provoking and character-driven, but then again, Harry Potter is written that way, so why not? Anyway, I'd recommend the 6-issue miniseries for fans of Now Slimer comics. Fred Savage, who I bet De Niro has never read one of these, and Wonder Year fans wanting their minds blown seeing Kevin Arnold meet the voice in his head. But then again, what do I know? I like Gillis Man of movies. I'll see you later, Screen Freaks! Well, howdy there, Scream Freaks! Well, thank you kindly for watching, and help yourself to more servings of Screaming Soup by visiting our site at screamingsoup.com. You can read our weekly updates, character bios, and interviews, catch up on past episodes, browse our store, and drool over the Howlin' Hottie of the Week. If you want to scream at us, just holler at screamingsoup@gmail.com, and don't forget to stalk us through social media, conveniently linked at the top of the site.